Okay, everybody, welcome back from holidays, leading from home. Phil, welcome back.
Hi there, Sean. Good to see you again.
Most importantly, how was the holiday? Recharged? Feeling great? Not feeling great? How are you feeling?
Well, the holiday wasn't quite the one we didn't anticipated when we booked it in January this year. It has to be said, and in fact, the hotel that we were going to go to in the Canaries was still shut in July, and so we had to make an alternative plan. Still, on the bright side, if I'd gone over there, I would have been in quarantine for 2 weeks,
Yeah,
and it might have cut down what I was going to do over here. So a mixed blessing of not being able to get over to our favourite place in Lanzarote.
excellent. Well, most importantly, I suppose, as we talked about at the last podcast before the break, how did you how did you disconnect? Did de-digitalize, if that was a word? Anything that helped you recharge, even though you couldn't go away? But as we talked about this digital overload and also like
Yeah.
desensitizing from all everything that's been happening. How what's your reflections over the break?
But well, I think it's fair to say we caused a lot of heads to turn when my wife and I went to our nearby theme park, Alton Towers, twice during our holiday. As probably the oldest unaccompanied oldest people there without children.
Yeah,
What's your excuse, Stockbridge?
yeah,
Well, it's just basically me and Viv love our thrills and our white knuckle rides,
yeah.
and so we were there at the front of all these socially distanced queues, trying to get to the front rows of all the roller coasters.
Fantastic. Well, I say in these days there are no rules in terms of as long as you say a have fun,
Yeah,
do what you can, which is a both safe for yourself and everybody else, but in a way which is help you switch off and recharge, which I think is the message
yeah,
here in terms of helping people feel better, learn better, as well as cope with what we're going through.
yeah. Before I ask you about yours, I mean, I just have to tell you that one of the things at the theme park was that you had to wear a face mask. And because I realized I was going to be on the podcast with you, I brought it with me.
It all looks great, apart from this flower on the right hand side, which I think if you had a kangaroo on the side, being Australia, would be a lot better.
It might be, mate, but that's the best one I could get.
Exactly.
So, what about you? What did you do to unwind?
Well, luckily for us here in Europe, we actually had our borders released was it June? So we had a holiday booked to go to France. Being Australian, love the beach, and my kids love the beach. So
Very nice.
we took all precautions necessary, and particularly with the mask. And we said, okay, well, we'll still continue the holiday and uh, and went to France for 2 weeks. So, and I think as we talked about, I was definitely feeling a huge amount of stress and as well as needed the break off. So for me, as well as spending time with the kids, that to go supboarding and to swimming, which is not as easier in Sweden compared to France when you have the beaches. I really wanted to have that holiday as a family one. So we went there and talk about face masks. I was really surprised how well my sons adapted to the whole having an airplane of people wearing masks. And my sons are only 7 and 9, and that's sort of the credit of like being sort of in tune to your family and sort of talking to them before you sort of go on holidays about COVID, and rather than say, oh, it's just it's something which we don't talk about. We talked about we need to wear a mask, and COVID is dangerous, and be really upfront. And on the plane, my son's put it straight on there with no complaints, and then get there, and I was pleasantly surprised because I thought what do I have to wear this mask for? So so that was one thing about learning to adapt as a family in terms of both that
Can I
communication.
Yeah, one of the other things I went for a lovely walk in the Peak District, which is close to where I live here in the UK. And
Mm,
you just reminded me of something, Sean, and it's absolutely about your attitude and the way you've been, teaching your kids about the new normal.
mm,
Because we were walking in the Peak District with our two dogs, and we were meeting families coming the other way, and
yeah,
some of their children had clearly become quite traumatized
mm,
about the prospect of interacting with other humans.
yeah,
And, to the point that as we came towards them, they were almost looking fearful towards their parents, going, can I walk past these, mummy? And you're thinking, hold on a minute. What on earth is the conversation going on back home that has conditioned these children over 3 months now to be afraid of other human beings?
That was exactly, and that also brings me back to how when we first talked about to our sons that we're going to France in an airplane. My first reaction from my older son was like, we're not allowed to fly. It's I want to get COVID, and we say, well, that's why it's so important to wash your hands all the time, wear your mask. But at the same time too, as we said, you need to adapt, and life still goes on. You can't just sort of become a cocoon. So the whole trip was, as much as it's fantastic with the weather and the supboard, my son became really responsible, like being abroad, that every time we went to a shop, gloves go on, mask went on, and, oh, Papa, where's your gloves? Oh, yeah, sorry. So that the responsibility of, the wider public as well as, themselves is, I think, a huge, positive for me, like in terms of, we're always learning both on holidays and at home. So I was really, really pleased from that angle in terms of helping your kids sort of open their eyes to these type of things, because these things will happen more often than not. So the responsibility of this thinking, oh, I don't want to do these things, as opposed to like, okay, this is the respect I need to show the public around and to stop the spread. So that was really good. But also importantly, I made an effort. I left my phone my work phone at home. So I said, I'm completely switching off any digital device. And so every day was swimming, teaching the kids how to supboard, which they haven't done, which I loved. Almost I could get my supboard back half the time, so they took most of it. Running every day, eating healthy food, lots of sleep. So all the things which I was aware of that I wasn't getting as much because of the influx of media, and also every day looking at screens and digital, that I know I needed it, as well as coming back, as we talked about, to recharge the battery. So I think when I used to go for runs there, I said, like, this is just incredible how much I needed this, actually, as both the switch off, but also how much of enjoyment that, the things that you love. And I think that's something which, even though we're back from holidays, we still continue the things that we love, and hence I'm still supboarding on the lakes, and so are my kids. So the holidays is really important to like reconnect with new habits, as well as bring habits back home that help you feel that enjoyment or that break of disconnect from everything else. So I'm definitely super refreshed. I can just feel I'm so much more at ease compared to a lot more on edge before the holidays, and why we said it on the podcast, why it's so important to disconnect and give yourself time and spend time with your family and those that are important to you.
At the same time, and Sean, it's also a lovely little reminder that in our new world that we're in, leading from home is not just what you do with your work colleagues.
No.
Leading from home is exactly what you do with yourself, and with your family.
Yeah.
And actually, whereas in the past we were able to, disconnect those, almost have three separate worlds that didn't coexist with each other. Leading from home now is leading your work colleagues, your home, your family, and yourself fundamentally, and role modeling the kind of behaviors that you want to see. Because as a father, as a parent, it's critical that you have such a higher influence now on what your children are going to be doing. Particularly if in your country the kids are going back into school, what kind of attitude are they going to have towards their schoolmates? You are going to be a very, very strong influencing factor as to whether they go in with the right attitude towards their education as it kicks off again, or a wrong one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also that triggers sort of one of the things that I was really aware of towards the end of before holidays, was being working from home so much that your kids, and with the kids finishing school before we finished holidays, my kids were at home quite a lot when I was still working. The kids, for the first time, get to see how you behave at work but at home. And so with that, I was a bit caught off guard that sometimes when I'm frustrated in meetings, or you sort of like, stressed, they get to see that side of you, which is not your fun side. You know, oh, Papa's angry, Papa's in a bad mood, and all the things. And they saw that. And sometimes they wanted us to be out of the house or on my bike, and that's where I really wanted to have that family time of saying, let's spend time with real Papa, like the fun, fitness, the outdoors, rather than having, them thinking, oh, Papa's changed. He's, I don't want to talk to him that much because of he's always looking at a screen, always got his earphones on. So I think that's something which made me more where we're coming back from the holidays, that now we are working, most of us from home, that to be more present with our kids, and also to be aware of that we can't just drop the F word or like anything in a meeting, because, the kids will pick up on that and then say, oh, I'm going to start swearing, and I'm going to be grumpy and, slam my desk. So I think from a behavior point of view as well, is that to be more, let's say, the integration of home and family, leading from home as a parent is so important and difficult, because of the boundaries of work and home are no longer physical. So so that's something which I really put emphasis on, of giving my kids a lot of my time during the holidays. That, yeah, of course, I could have gone for like a 3 or 4 hour bike ride, which the plan was before the COVID. But since I spent so much time at work, I wanted to spend those 2 weeks, teaching them things that I love, which they can, as they enjoy, and give that family time, which with the home environment being merged, impacted. So that was the biggest takeaway for me, which everybody was definitely happy to have that holiday. And yes, we had to wear masks and we had to wear gloves, but as I say, it's a small price to pay in the situation that we're dealing with. So look at the positives. Hey, we had a holiday. We were lucky to fly, which, regardless of what restrictions, you just do it and accept it, and try to enjoy what you have.
Very good. We're far away from the end of this process. In fact, we're probably only at the end of the beginning of the whole pandemic. And so, these strategies are absolutely vital for the medium to long term. So it's great. It's great to hear that you've come back so refreshed and so recharged.
Yep. Well, that and so I suppose now leading into, now we've come to the, as we said, after the holidays and recharged. The biggest question I'd like to sort of now kick off with you, Phil, is that, and also you say that we're at the beginning of the next wave, and here we are talking before the summertime of having we reached the half time mark, but it looks like it's not. How can, as a starting point, how can people position themselves in terms of, okay, I'm coming back from holidays, I'm back in my home office, the stress is around the world still there. How can people continue to be recharged, but change their mindset or learn from what they've done before these holidays to continue as we move into the autumn and come back to work?
Yeah, well, I think one of the places where I'd start on this, answering this, is looking at this in terms of that change curve that is so well known. The brilliant work that was done by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on grief and grieving. And in fact, actually, in the last issue of the Harvard Business Review, the co-author of that document, who's a guy called David Kessler, was talking about the importance of understanding the change curve and the grief cycle as relating to this COVID situation. Recognizing that actually, we're far from through it, and people will have experienced this in very different ways. I'm just trying to find the 3 key words that he used. He said, there are going to be people who haven't been affected, but they're still worried. He called them the worried well. Yeah. He said, and then there's the ones who have been affected, and then there are the ones who have lost loved ones, and they're the bereaved. Yeah. And I think as leaders, it's a wonderful way to consider, where are our people? Because in some parts of the world, they've blessed, blissfully been unaffected. Yeah. But I've got friends and colleagues that I work with, where it's been very personal. It's come in, it's hit them, their families, and it has changed them, and it's changed them forever. And I think as leaders, we need to be very mindful of these 3 groups and where are they on this process of change.
Yeah, Yeah, the change curve, and we'll link it to the show notes at the end. But I think this is something which is really important to understand for everybody, because of, as I say, we are all impacted and it's touching everybody, and you can't just block it off and say this is going to go away. But at the same time, if I reference, speaking of the Harvard, two things that I picked up on during the holiday. The first one was, which we've both been looking at, the latest review, Emerging from the Crisis, how to lead through uncertainty and strengthen your organization for the long haul. And then another article, another magazine which I subscribe to, Monocle. It's got here, Let's Get Moving. Two things which I would like to discuss with you, Phil. One is, giving you, as you say, the change curve in terms of, okay, we need to sort of go through and navigate this uncertainty and the word crisis. But on the other side, another magazine space, like, okay, let's get going. Come on, let's move on. It's almost like rushing you through the change curve. How can, you have different viewpoints and different media angles. How can we, as let's say, like average person sitting at home on different parts of the change curve, how can you perceive, and as well as navigate these type of conflicting messages of, let's move on fast, or there's a crisis, what are the tools I can navigate? What do you recommend in terms of going through these type of things?
In a lot of articles that I've been reading, the key point about the change curve is if you like, the end, where you're going. And therefore the key challenge that we've got for this particular crisis is we don't know where the end is.
Yeah.
And so, for us as leaders in particular, we don't have that strong vision of what the end is going to look like, sound like, and feel like to pull people through this, ourselves included. And it's that aspect that I think we are still underestimating, is that, to pull people through change, you need to have a clear idea of what the other side looks like.
Yeah.
There is no clarity of what the other side looks like at the moment.
Yeah.
Even this morning, Sean, I was listening to the radio here in the UK, and one of our politicians was in denial. I mean, and that's, to use the change curve, the language that he used was just the language of denial, as if it has never happened.
Yeah.
And, everyone is going to go back to working in the offices. The transport system is going to be there to make it happen. Completely ignoring the realities of the 41,000 deaths in our country and the hundreds of thousands elsewhere in the world, and all of the other things that go with it. And it's until we have leaders out in our businesses and outside who are actually prepared to accept that we are never going back to the way it was. Our second biggest airport in the country, Gatwick Airport, also reported they expect their passenger numbers to return to pre-COVID levels in 6 years' time. And they are planning accordingly. Now that is a leadership that at least has a vision that says, we don't expect anything to be back to anywhere near it the way it was for another 6 years. So let us now we can go through a change curve with some idea, and that's what we have to do as leaders.
Yeah, exactly, and it goes back to the basic natural survivals of adaptability, in terms of the survival of the fittest are those who adapt. And I think that's the situation that I think at last we can teach people in this podcast, is trying to give people tools and particularly your coaching about how do people adapt to the situation that we're in. And as I say, it's not going to go away, particularly when you hear most companies like the Googles and the big ones, they're already communicating that they're not even returning at the earliest until February next year, if not even. So I think most people need to accept that working from home is going to be here for quite some time. So try to learn the tools, techniques, family balance, and different ways of changing things to, as you say, gradually go through this change curve, and as well as the changes that need to take place with your kids, with yourself, with the new habits, rather than thinking just 2 more months and then it'll be over, and then thinking that because things won't return to normal. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and again, you know, the reference today was, well, you know, if you share a house and you've got one communal area, you'll want to go back into the office. Well, I get that point completely, but the alternative is actually you move out of a very expensive rental property in the middle of London and you buy yourself a property in the countryside,
Yeah.
which you can afford with on the money that you were spending on rent.
Yeah.
And actually you have your own home office dedicated to working and leading from home.
Yeah.
And we're seeing huge examples in the UK of people who have moved out of the city, sometimes back to their parents or sometimes into new rented or even purchased properties, and have no intention of going back into the cities again, because that they suddenly realize that life again is much more than actually spending 8 hours perched on the edge of the kitchen table in a shared apartment or on the end of their bed. They don't need that.
No. And having a computer screen, like sort of screaming out for 9-8 hours a day, with headphones, and that's the thing. Like, and I suppose a segue to your of helping people helping people things differently with a new feature which you're going to talk about very quickly, about gyms and personal trainers. The importance of having an outdoor space or nature, like going back to basics, appreciating the park, appreciating go for a run, looking at not just a concrete jungle, that these type of things that another virus or being locked down, which these type of things, people need to adapt, but also need to recharge and reconnect. And you see often different things reconnect with nature, reconnect with things that give you pleasure, and that's where in a big city those type of things don't just come around the corner. But yeah, speaking of, as I said, around the corners and gyms that most people have, most people before COVID always had a PT at the gym, which with a lot of companies now closing down their gyms or public gyms are closed down. You're offering a new personal training, which is these days more important than going to the gym physically. You're coaching personal training gym. Do you want to talk us about how listeners can get a workout with you virtually, but help adapt as well as learn new techniques to be smarter, help feel better as other things, that the benefits that trying to cope with today's crisis? So Phil's Leadership Gym, can you talk more about that, please?
Well, yeah, thanks, Sean. I mean, it's something that kind of emerged as this crisis emerged. That leaders that I was talking with, leaders that I was coaching, I suddenly realized that what they were missing more than anything else was time to think. And I think that quality, and the higher you go up in an organization, it's always been important, but for everybody, we need time to think. We need time to process what's going on in our lives. The Zoom and Teams and all of these others are consuming our working day. Responsible parents, mums and dads, are taking advantage of being at home, spending more time with their children, which is absolutely admirable. But then they're in back-to-back Zoom calls and Teams calls for the whole of their day. Yeah. And they come to the end of the day, they're immediately the mum and the dad again. Yeah. The bit they're missing is time to think. And what I've been offering, and what has been landing exceptionally well, is what I call a leadership gym. It's an opportunity for people to check in with me, to use an hour of time to think about the things that are going on in their work, and without the distractions of Teams calls, emails, and children in the background, just think about how can they be the best leaders that they need to be for themselves, for their business, and for their families. And I've been doing that, and it's been landing exceptionally well in the companies where I've been offering the service.
Well, I'm not surprised, given that us corporates have always had these training programs, like you say, the one you deliver for our companies on premises. But now that people are working from home, all these training courses and particularly external courses don't exist. So as I was looking, on the catalog in terms of training courses, particularly with looking at how to improve coaching in these areas, everything's frozen. So, but the need for it's like a curve, that the demand curve is straight up, but all that people like us who need coaching and the service that you talk about, but the supply is down. So I think, as I say, I think this service is excellent in terms of, I definitely, I'm looking forward to, jumping into the gym and having a few sessions with you, because as look at all the coaches around the world, from sports to business. Roger Federer, the best, one of the best tennis players, he's got multiple coaches, and the same as Pavarotti had the best coach all the way through his singing. So I think people need to sort of realize that they can't fight things alone, and they shouldn't, and it is okay to reach out for support, but at the same time be proactive and learn from coaches like yourself and for other services to think and to apply the new changes.
It's one of the things that a guy that we've got a lot of time for, Greg Orme, and another great author, Simon Sinek, say is that great leaders are very humble people. They ask lots of questions. They are very self-aware that there's always room for improvement. And what the leadership gym does more than anything else is it allows these great leaders to basically open themselves up to the world of possibility. Yeah. And of course, as all great leaders, the answers are nearly always there, but they never have time to actually think through those solutions. So with a little bit of humility, and that's, even people with like, as you say, Pavarotti, with that massive ego, recognized he could not continue to be the best without the help of someone else. Yeah. And was open for that. And it's wonderful to see that humility of greats in sport and in music, open and recognizing the need for that external support to continue to be the best of what they do.
Yeah. And the best thing I really like about your leadership gym is that you can do it in your own home, whereas you don't need to travel. All I have to do is press a link and I enter your gym straight away, and it's confident, as opposed to I sometimes can't. Well, I know I can't talk about some issues to my manager because of that confidentiality, whereas talking to someone like you, that you're independent, everything is confidential, you're a professional coach. That is as a big thing and also I can't talk about some things to my wife because of you don't want to make them feel worried about the stress you go through. So I think this is excellent in terms of a big support service that we all need, particularly when the stress of this COVID isn't going away and is increasing. And it's another service that I really recommend people take advantage of, because of don't let things crumble them until it's too late, where you burn out or have chronic anxiety and these type of things. Be proactive, be humble, and ask for help. So how can people find out more about this leadership gym, Phil?
Very good. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to post a link onto my website, and obviously onto my LinkedIn. Contact me through there. It's going to be pretty straightforward to set it up from there, and I'd look forward to hearing from people as and when they need it.
Fantastic, excellent. Finally, we are almost approaching the weekend and almost approaching the end of this podcast. And as I always say, what's Sean wearing this time? Well, today I'm wearing my Tour de France hat because the Tour de France, being a mixed cyclist, starts tomorrow. So doing the things that I love, my weekend is going to be glued to the TV watching the cycling.
Brilliant.
Switching off the computer for work, it's turned off for this afternoon. I'll be having a French beer this afternoon, ready for the tour. So, Phil, what's some plans for your weekend coming up?
What's plans for the weekend coming up? I want to end by telling you something which I heard, which I found very funny, but it's very relevant to you and I. There is a burgeoning service now being offered here in the UK from beauticians who are providing Botox, fillers, and other cosmetic services to people who are spending so much time on Zoom meetings. They're becoming really aware of the way they look. And I thought, and I had to tell you this, there are people, because they're seeing themselves on camera so much now.
Has my face in there.
That's right. Oh, geez, did I show?
I look so wide,
Yeah, that's it. Going into the tanning studios, getting the Botox, getting the bags sorted out, and I thought, there you go. You've got to make the most of a crisis.
So your weekend is getting yourself Botox and getting your hair dyed and all those type of things. Is it? So you're signed up for some of those services?
I think what we'll do is next week we'll see if anyone notices the difference.
We should put us through a trial of taking a feature each and then guess what we've done to our faces. Or
That's exactly.
well, I actually did give them credit because I think a lot of the articles on the positive side have talked about how innovative a lot of companies are in terms of looking at opportunities in what we have, rather than going, oh, life sucks, that I can't get a job. That those people have had to reinvent themselves or retrain all of the new jobs. That's exactly what we're talking about. So I give them credit for being creative, but I don't give credit for being vain in terms of like, you are who you are, and I think like spend your money more wisely in terms of either towards your family, towards your coaching, or your well-being, rather than superficial things that, as I say, is it going to make you happy in the long term? Probably not.
Yeah. And always remember, you can turn your video off in terms of what's on your screen.
Yeah.
You know, so keep it on so other people can see. But if you don't like seeing yourself, just turn it off on your side of the screen, and then the problem goes away.
Exactly, and it's free. The button's free to press. It doesn't cost you anything.
It's as simple as that.
Next week, everybody, we're going to dig deeper into some of the articles that Phil and I have been reading over the summertime about some strategies about how to emerge from the crisis in successful ways, and sort of some tools. And also Greg Orme, we talked about, he produced an excellent blog article last week about zooming out, and that's, I think, we want to discuss a lot of that, but because people are so into these bubbles that, as Greg talked about, zoom out, look at the big picture, and we're going to talk about that next week. So a lot to discuss. Now we're back from holidays, and so it's back to normal tools, coaching, services, helping people feel better, lead from home. But for now, it's time to enjoy a afternoon beer soon. Enjoy some sport. Phil, gardening for you too. Like, how's your gardening coming along?
Yeah, it's looking great, and the tomatoes are all ripening up now. So we're going to be lots of pasta sauces being cooked this weekend,
Fantastic.
ready for the freezer.
Good, healthy food. Well, have a nice weekend. Excellent talking to you again after the holidays, and yeah, everybody will put the links to what we talked about today. Phil's Leadership Gym. Sign up for your PT, because your mental health is as important to your physical health. And most importantly, switch off, enjoy, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, see you soon, folks.
Enjoy the tour.
Bye now.